Hello and welcome to Cavity Magic. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the Ankh, from ancient Egypt to modern vampirism. History, if you will. The Ankh is a very old ancient Egyptian hieroglyph which roughly translates to life, and examples of the Ankh have been as early as the 1st dynasty or 30 BC, roughly around 30 BC. Ankh has also been referred to as the Key of Life, the Key of the Nile, or the Crux Anasta. Ankh was often associated with ancient Egyptian gods such as Horus, Ra, and Osiris. Later variations of the Ankh were also considered to be used as a funerary symbol, often associated with gods such as Anubis. This was often because the Ankh was often buried with mummified remains of important people in ancient Egypt, such as pharaohs, as well as other sacred keys of the afterlife, such as scarabs. This may be where the Ankh adopted the unknown conception of being a symbol of eternity, immortality, and reincarnation. Where this comes from, however, is currently unknown. The Christianization of ancient Egypt made the Ankh, or commonly referred to as the Crux Anasta in this case, or looped cross or handled cross, was considered for a short time an alternate to the Christian cross. In modern times, this fact is commonly forgotten. Later in the timeline, emerging around the late 1970s, the Ankh was adopted by the Gothic subculture. And to this day, Goths can still be seen wearing Ankhs as a common symbol of life and immortality. Why this is thought to be ironic, considering, but, ask a Goth. 1983, a vampire film came out called The Hunger. This was the first ever showing of what was now known as the bladed Ankh, and is considered a very common vampiric symbol nowadays. Yep, believe it or not, the bladed Ankh stemmed from this film, and not originally from where most of you are probably thinking, Vampire the Masquerade. That came out much later. But correct me if I'm wrong here, the original edition of the game, Vampire the Masquerade, like the sort of D&D type game, came out around 1991. The game Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines came out a bit later. The Masquerade Redemption was first, but Bloodlines is the one that most people know, so that's the one I'm going to talk about, and that came out in Onto the Internet 2004. Wow, 10 years old and still, really talked about today, to be honest. Yeah, basically, long story short, for the vampirism, The Hunger and Vampire the Masquerade made bladed Ankhs a really big thing in the vampire community, which is what I'm going to talk about now. So, even though I say Vampire the Masquerade is a big reason for bladed Ankhs, technically one of the original bladed Ankhs that was recognised as a vampire symbol was around 1994 to 1996. So the timeline's a bit, funky with this, but bear with me. Around this time, there was a relatively, I'd say medium-sized at the time, vampire forum, or several vampire forums for the real vampire community. One of them you may know is the Sanguinarium. Basically, the Sanguinarium decided one day, we want an Ankh specifically for the vampire community, so that those in the know can recognise us instead of are they a goth, are they a vampire? We want a particular symbol or sigillum so that other vampires can recognise us relatively easily as what we are. From there, the first edition of the Legacy Ankh was born, and eventually came into proper fruition in 1997. Version 1 did, anyway. I think there's currently 3 versions, and there's different reasons for that. The reason being House Sabertooth. House Sabertooth were technically part of the Sanguinarium. You may know it as the Vampire World forums, where most of House Sabertooth is now on the internet, as well as Father Sebastian's personal websites. That's a fair point, actually. I think the Sanguinarium / the original Vampire World forums, back when it was a Sanguinarium, is still up, but it's been kind of dead since 2013 to 2015. There's a particular reason for that. One of the big community members sadly passed away in I think it was 2013. That's why it's basically been quiet. Either way, the second edition of the Legacy Ankh was around 2007 to around 2018, and then it had a redesign version 3 in 2019. The version of the Legacy Ankh was made by a metalworker simply referred to as Dr. Drennan. Version 3 specifically, if you go through Vamporum or Sabretooth directly, the portion of the profits actually go to charities. As a member of the real vampire community, I do actually own a Legacy Ankh, and I also have kept the scroll that comes with said Legacy Ankh, so I can read you the actual excerpt or quote, if you want, from the Vamporum / Sabretooth. It says, "The Ankh was originally an ancient Egyptian hieroglyph which meant life. Many ancient Egyptian artworks, especially funerary art, depict gods and pharaohs bearing this symbol. Over time, the Ankh came to symbolize immortality and can be seen as a key to unlock the gates of death. Most traditions and members of the Hermetic Order will use this symbol in their ritual. Some Ankhs also like to incorporate mirrors into their design and have sometimes been used to symbolize perception of subtle realities. The bladed Ankh first appeared in the popular culture in the 1983 film The Hunger, based on a novel. With its historical symbolism, cultural significance, and esoteric nature, the bladed Ankh soon became one of the most obvious and most common symbols for the vampire. The Legacy Ankh in particular has a special version of a bladed Ankh and its sigillum, which represents the virtues, teachings, traditions, cultures, and philosophies known to the vampire community as the Black Veils." And that's basically everything. You are basically now up to date with a relatively brief history of the Ankh, from ancient Egypt to modern vampires. I hope you learned something new. If you have, awesome. If you haven't, that's fine. If you like darker magic and vampirism and other such related content, and you like what I do, perhaps consider dropping me either a like or a subscribe. You don't have to, but if you like my stuff, it helps you to find me easier, you know.